Hey, everybody, welcome to Hearing God in Hebrews 9. And this chapter reminds me of a sermon series that we did years ago on the tabernacle. And I love the imagery of the tabernacle, each and every one of those elements which were important to how Israel worshiped Yahweh in the wilderness. And then that ultimately became a fixed temple in Jerusalem. But we talked about the fact that each and every one of those elements of the tabernacle and the temple ultimately found their fulfillment in Jesus. And that's really what Hebrews chapter 9 is all about. And then it kind of crescendos into verses 27 and 28 at the very end. And that was my highlight for this chapter. It says in verse 27, "And just as it is appointed for man to die once, and after that comes judgment, so Christ, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, will appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but to save those who are eagerly waiting for him." And one of the interesting elements of being a pastor is that I do funerals on a regular basis. And that's certainly not the most enjoyable part of my job by any means, but there is a positive byproduct of doing these funerals, which is it's an instant reality check for me. It reminds me of the reality of verse 27 here, that it just as it is appointed for man to die once, and after that comes the judgment. You see, I get busy. I get involved with lots of the daily responsibilities of ministry and of life, and it's easy to forget this reality that we're going to die and there is going to be judgment. And so funerals kind of help remind me of that. It kind of snaps me out of my malaise, and it reminds me of what matters most. Their leadership book from years ago talked about beginning with the end in mind. And what's an important leadership principle, I believe, is also an important principle for our Christian lives, that we need to live daily with the end in mind, which is death and judgment, because that will definitely influence how we live each day, what's important, and where we give our time and attention. The problem is we do get busy and we do forget the reality of verse 27. And so I appreciate the reminder that it gives us today. And the importance of making sure that we're ready, but also that those around us are ready, that we would do the work of an evangelist, that it would be on our hearts to be actively sharing our faith with others, acknowledging that they too will die and face judgment. And then verse 28 is interesting. It talks about, so Christ, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, will appear a second time. He's coming back, not to deal with sin, but to save those, and this is the interesting phrase, who are eagerly waiting for him. And so as I move down to application, I think one of the questions I ask myself is, hey, Chad, how are you eagerly, actively waiting for Jesus? Did I wake up this morning with the thought, hey, it could be today? And honestly, I must confess to you that no, that wasn't my first or second or third thought when I woke up today. But I think if we are fulfilling what this says, um, yes, with that will be more on the forefront of our minds than in the back of our minds. That yes, Jesus is coming. I'm eagerly waiting. I'm on the edge of my seat and I'm anticipating. Going to take a vacation here in a few weeks, and I'm eagerly waiting for that vacation and the hopefully getting to see some sun for a little while. On a much grander scale, am I eagerly waiting for the return of Jesus? And so I ask you that same question today. A couple questions, really. Number one, um, is it in the forefront of your mind or the back of your mind that death is coming, judgment is coming, but also that Jesus is coming? And we must be those who live with the end in mind, because it will directly influence what's important to us today. And so in my response, I simply said, Father, please refocus my life today on the reality of the brevity of this life and the reality of the judgment to come. May I seek to make the most of today as a living sacrifice that is pleasing to you and is fruitful for your kingdom. May I live today with the end in mind. So hopefully that encourages you today, maybe challenges you as well. Have an awesome day.